This video is proudly sponsored by DigimonCard.io for all your Digimon card, deck building, deck list, card pricing, and discussion needs.
Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for a European Ultimate Cup that happened this past weekend in Spain. As far as I can tell, is around 200 players or so, about 182, and we do have this top 16. It is using the Ultimate Cup rules as well, so that does mean the monocolor restriction as well as the restrictions and bans as we see here as well. And real quick before we get started as well, quick shout out to my website. If you guys haven't used it, that's what's showing right here on the screen. So if you want these deck lists, it's linked in the description. But also, if you want any Ultimate Cup deck list, I have a section for the site specifically for all the events I've covered in this. So if you want to go to any of these deck lists, any of these archetypes that have topped any of the larger events, or at least ones that I've run as well. For example, let's say Mervamon, none of them topped this weekend, but you guys are still interested in finding a list for it. Here are all the lists that I've seen that top from it, and if you guys want to just go straight to it, links here right onto DigimonCard.io. So I think it's really slick. I think it's a really good resource for anyone who wants to see some topping deck lists and get some ideas of their own. So I hope you guys see the resource and are able to use it as well. Any feedback, please let me know, but I'm working pretty dang hard on it. So anyways, going on into this top 16 breakdown, we see a lot more diversity than we've seen in a lot of the other events that are happening on the same weekend. We have 3 yellow hybrids, 2 Ulforce with one of them taking the event, 2 Bloomlords, which is quite low compared to the other events that we've been seeing, 2 Machinedramons, 2 Gallantmons, and singles of DarkKnight, Blue Flare, Dorbick, Gabu-Bond, and a green hybrid, which hasn't gone to top, at least for any of the events that I've seen in Ultimate Cup. It's a sneaky 16th place right here, but it did get into that top 16. So we're going to go over each one of these topping archetypes with the topping list for each archetype, starting off with our first place list right here. So we have Jorge's first place Ulforce, and Ulforce, honestly, I think has been doing a little bit worse than I think a lot of people, including myself. I thought the deck was going to be doing very, very good going into this format. And it's doing okay for what it is, but a first place is definitely fantastic for it, especially for something that it hasn't been an archetype, I think, that's been topping every event that we've been seeing for this format either, but it does have a lot of potential to do very well, be very aggressive for what it is. The new archetype with it is fantastic as well, being able to go up your chains. I think the V-Tamer tie, finally having a good deck to use this card makes me very happy because I've been holding on to this for like 2 years now, and in general, it's just a very, very strong deck. Once you get into this guy, you're able to do a lot of combos if you're able to find your tamers and get everything to work with them. And I do like the idea of the Tommy tamer. I think Tommy does a lot for this deck and kind of counters a lot of other decks that are in the meta right now too. A couple hybrids with there, and then also the Mirage Gabu-Bond, which is great in its way too. So just when Digivolving, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower to their hand. If no Digimon moves a turn by this effect, your opponent adds the top card of their security stack to their hand. And all turns once per turn, when an effect adds a card to your opponent's hand, gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in their hand. So being able to gain memory on potentially your opponent's turn when they try to do something like use a memory boost or like draw in any way that's essentially not a devolution is fantastic. So this is a really good kind of tech card, and just like a 5th copy of like something for level 6 to go in, I think is strong in general. But again, you guys probably have your own opinions about this deck. It's really exciting that this deck won the event. I definitely know that Jorge was very over himself. Like he's like, oh, I can't believe I got it. There's the whole, I saw a whole video on it, and it looks really fun. So congrats again for their first place finish there. Going on into second place, we have Eduardo's Bloomlord. And I kind of mentioned earlier, Bloomlord is doing very, very healthy, at least here in North America and all the other events I covered this last weekend. It's one of the more popular topping decks, and I think it's a deck that a lot of people just kind of naturally migrate to because the fact that it was running in standard BT11 and you're already running mono greens. It's one of the few decks that were doing both those things. Most other decks were teching in like Cool Boys and just other like non-monocolor cards for those reasons. But I think this deck is in a really good spot. I really think Hidden Potential Discovered should have been set to 0 along with a couple other cards, even if it's just like in the main, like even BT11. I think this card just steals games a lot of times if you're able to see it, which also the security effect is to add it to your hand. There's just so much that this card can do, and especially like honestly, I think the card that is breaking it is Bloomlord, and the fact that this is a card that you get to Digivolve and gain memory for. So if you get to Digivolve this for free and then gain 4 memory, then you just gained 4 memory for free, which is not very easy for a lot of decks to do, especially in green where everything you do is cost reduced in cost anyways, it's a pretty rough interaction. So do watch out for that. I also do like the ad of the Nidhoggmon. I think this is great, especially like in the mirror match, because if they're gonna just end their turn with a bunch of their stuff suspended, and then you just Nidhogg and then they all go away, and you're in a really good spot too. So that's something I think helps you in the mirror match a lot of times, and some other decks. But I would definitely run this at least one if I was playing this deck, just because I think there's going to be a lot of people on the deck as in itself. So to have that big counter for it, I think is really important. So congrats to Eduardo for their second place there. Going into third place, we have Cristóbal's third place DarkKnight. And if you guys have been watching my videos, I'm a big fan of this deck. We only got one into the top 16, but that is enough for me. It's such a great recursive deck in a lot of ways. It's kind of tricky to finally get all the pieces off the board at the same time. I do like the DarkKnightmon here for the Digivolve on a 4 cost. That then also this has recursion on deletion, which is great. And then the only issue, like when this would be deleted, if it was deleted or returned to hand or something, like if we could get both effects, that'd be fantastic. But this is still good for what it is. And then also, I've been seeing more people put the Immortal Ruler card in. So when you have a Nene in play, you may use this card without meeting its color requirements, which is how we're able to use it in this deck without having any other card. I guess if you have like the DarkKnightmon X antibody, you can use it as well. But main trash, top 3 cards of your deck to your trash, then you can play 1 DarkKnightmon in your trash for its memory cost. If you play a card with Digicross requirements by this effect, you may Digicross by placing any of the specified Digimon from your trash at the bottom of this card as its devolution card. So being able to do all that is super good, which just means that again you can play this for 4 from your trash, which means that you don't need to do anything, especially since you can use from the trash as well. So being able to use everything. So if you just have like a complete set of stuff into the trash, which is pretty easy to do, you just get this for pretty much 4, which is great. You get a lot of advantage because again, when you get deleted, you do get advantage back. You get to play some stuff, including the Skull Knightmon Mighty Axe mode, which gets to recur as well. All of this stuff is good. Very good deck, and I like it a lot. So I'm happy it's getting another top in this event here. Next up, we have Iván with their 5th place Machinedramon, and this is definitely a popular list, and I think a lot of people are trying to gravitate towards this, and there's a lot of great things it can do. It's very defensive. I still think like Chaosdramon is a really, really bully of a card. There's a lot of decks that just simply can't answer this. If you have that with your analog men out, you can just pretty much win the game by not losing the game kind of thing. It does mean that the games tend to go a little bit longer. You do have to be a little bit more wary about that as well. But yeah, your opponent's gonna have a really hard time to out this, I think, more times than not, which is really interesting. I also do like the ad of the Ragnarlordmon. When I was looking at like some Dorbick lists before, or like the list that we topped here in North America with the Black War Greymon X, who is also running the Dorbick Ragna. I think that was a really, really nice ad for that. So this seems like the same thing, especially in a deck that has a hard time sometimes finishing a game. Having this Ragnarlord, especially when you already have like these really big stacks of red and black Digimon, it could be a really good game ender for it. So I do like the ad of that there. Black Mamboos, also the Kazu, and just your choice of your favorite level 5 machines. So congrats to Iván again. It's really interesting to see how much this kind of fluxes back and forth of, Machinedramon being good and then people finding outs for it or being too fast for it. But I think Machinedramon is probably pretty understood as one of the better decks in this format as well. So congrats to Iván for their 5th place. And moving along, we have Eduardo Masi with another another placing with Gallantmon. It's 6th place for this event, but he's been running this Gallantmon 2 weeks ago? Last week? I think it was last week. Last week with a list like this and being able to do very well. And again, able to do very well again this week with this list here. So I think it's pretty similar to what he was running already. I mean, I think he got 3rd last time, so why would you need to change anything like that? If it's already working well, just play it again and you're going to do well, and I think that is what happens. So just the aggression that this deck gets to put out is very great. You are a little bit susceptible to just having some bad hands, unfortunately, because there's not a lot of cycle for you. But the fact that you're able to just get up into your stack, the War Growlmon's great. War Growl X is fantastic. The Tamers are a lot easier to find than used to be before at least EX3. And then Gallantmon Crimson mode, my apologies, is such a great card for finishing games. And also just a really good card to have in your security at times and everything else. It's Gallantmon's really great in this format. I think it's at least compared to how it's been in the last year or so, and it's really cool to see it kind of have some time in the sunlight. So congrats again to Eduardo for their finish there. Next up, we have a Blue Flare. This is run by Angel, and we've been seeing quite a bit of Blue Flare here in North America. I think it's one of the more popular lists, especially for like a lot of blue players who are used to playing, I think, like Melga, or at least used to be blue hybrid players. This is definitely just like the current version of that kind of archetype of being able to get like a lot of attacks for cheap if you need to, and being able to like do a lot of like, it's like it make it very, very hard for your opponent to interact with you at times. So the whole combo with Metal Greymon's great. Doing the Cyber Launcher as well, which can get rid of 2 items. The Z Greymon for 1, and then also 2 Mirage Galgamon for this list as well, since you just go into a level 5 for this, and then if you sometimes have issues getting rid of another card or stunning another card or something has too many sources, this Mirage is fantastic, or just fantastic for just doing a damage, and then if they try to use any effects to get rid of your draw some cards on their turns, you get to gain the memory, so it's a good kind of stopper, or it can be a good floodgate for your opponent doing too much too. So I really like the addition for this. I think more and more people are realizing that Mirage Galgamon is great, especially in a lot of decks that don't necessarily need to have a big level 6 boss monster or don't have enough of them. So I think we're going to see more of this, and watch out for what this does. If you're not aware, it can sometimes just end your turn without you even knowing it until it happens. So again, congrats to Angel for their 7th place finish there. And then next up we have Alberto with their 8th place Dorbick. And I know a lot of people have opinions about Dorbickmon. It is a very strong list, and sometimes you just lose and it's not your fault, and Dorbick's just like, I just drew the cards I needed to, and I got there. But that's the game. That is the game we're playing, and that is kind of how this deck works in a lot of ways. You just try to go into Dorbick, and since there's not as much security control stuff and not as much defense, especially since I would say this meta is slower than the generic BT11 meta as well. This is really able to get some time to set up, and when it goes off, it really does go off, especially with all the security attack +1s you can get Volk, Master Tyrannomon, and the Greymon. All of these are great for the deck, and it can just mean like you can just do a big old swing and go for it. And the only thing you're missing out is Majin, because you're not a Majiri, sorry, because you can't, it's blue, right? So that's something that's kind of stopping you a little bit, but in general, this is a really strong deck that if it goes off, then sometimes you can't do anything about it, which is really rough at times. But congrats to Alberto for their 8th place finish there. We got 3 more decks, starting off with this Yellow Hybrid. And Yellow Hybrid didn't get any spots in the top 8, but it got a lot of, it was also the most popular deck in the top 16, so a lot of this 10th to 16th place kind of range for it. But this is one of my favorite decks for this format. I've always been kind of a fan of Yellow Hybrid and the playstyle, because sometimes it just feels like you just win like by turn 2 or 3. You just get so much advantage with Tamers, and the fact that Tamer Destruction is not as destructive as it is in the main BT11, as well as there's not as much interaction against Tamers. So that means that Yellow Hybrid decks are just a little bit inherently better right now than they've been, but I think that's very, very strong. So including like the Sakuramon being able to get the recovery on the way up, as well as the Venusmon, I think this is fantastic too. Unfortunately, can't use Shakuramon with for DNA in the current build, which kind of stinks. But otherwise, it's a solid card, and like the inherited effect for it as well pairs up great. So that -3K to something is really strong, especially paired up with like TK and Kari or something else like that. And then just kind of like the closest thing to like a security control deck that we have that's meta in BT11 Ultimate Cup, just because you are able to run a couple of these yellow options that do a lot. So congrats to Jose on their finish, and all the other Yellow Hybrid players as well. It doesn't seem like it's been cracking like top 8 consistently, but top 16 has been kind of the home for this. So probably like tier 2, but still very, very strong deck. So next up we have Luciano's Gabu-Bond, and this is I've been excited to test more Gabu-Bond and to undust it off, re-sleeve it up, and see how it does in this format. And it seems like it's doing okay. I wouldn't say it's the best deck in the format and probably not even the best blue deck in the format, but if you like blue hybrid and you want to have a good time, I think this is a very strong deck still, and sometimes it's just very hard to interact with it. I do think it probably has a pretty rough matchup with green hybrid at times, because they can just kind of sun you down a little bit, and that's kind of what I saw on the Carta Magica regionals as well. I saw the matchup, and it just didn't feel like Gabu-Bond could really do anything. But again, this is still a really great boss monster in a lot of ways. Just when attacking once per turn, you get to return a level 5, or sorry, just every time this attacks, a level 5 or lower, and then if you're able to get the Bond Gabu, you get like a third attack, so 3 things to the bottom of the deck if you survive every one of the swings, and it does a lot of damage, and it makes it hard for opponent to kind of interact on the backside. So I like this deck in its own way. I think it's a little bit, it's almost there. I wouldn't say that it's consistently tier 1, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm happy we get to play it again. So congrats to Luciano there. And our final list of the day, it is Mario's 16th place green hybrid, and I've always been a fan of green hybrid. About a year ago, it kind of got put on the map by getting first place in a really big event, and it's just been really, really cool to see. People started using it afterwards, and then obviously kind of hybrid format died off a little bit. But since the tamer hate is gone, as I said in the yellow hybrid breakdown, there's just room for people to go back into those decks. So I think green hybrid is definitely a way to do that, and I like the kind of the innovation for this build too. So going on into it, we do have a lot of tamers. We have 13 tamers, I believe. We do have like the Angliomon as well, which when you play green tamer, you get to draw a card. Inheritable, when your opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, you get to draw a card too, which is really easy, especially like with the Rapidmon. These pair up together very nicely. We also have Terriermon. We also have the other one as well, which gets the reduced devolution here onto the Rapidmon. We also have Lamortamon, so when Digivolving, suspending one of your opponent's Digimon, and then also once per turn, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's in battle, unsuspend it, and then also when you're attacking, if you don't have a tamer play, you get to lose 2 memory. So it's a level 5, but it's also a 9k, so it gets a little bit more DP. That's kind of the way this one works. So that's kind of strong. And then also the Rhino. So what you can do too is that you can use your devolution into Beetlemon, which would only cost 1 with a JP out, so that into Beetlemon into Rhino, which would also only cost 1. And then when attacking, if this card is a green hybrid or insect, you can digivolve into a insect warrior. 10 warriors is in your hand with a memory cost of 3, which means you can digivolve into Grandis, and this has when digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then if this Digimon is attacking, you may switch the target to one of your opponent's suspended. So then this gains plus 4k end of attack once per turn. The rest doesn't happen, so you don't get the unsuspend because you don't have Grand Kawagamon or X antibody, but the rest of it's great. It's great removal because you just get to go into this on an attack and redirect it because of how the when digivolving text kind of says you can do it. So I think that's a nice little add and kind of great for what it is. Like I think like Machinedramon like has like these big bodies that are hard to get rid of, but like this can really help you accomplish that in a lot of ways. So anyways, I think this deck is very nice, and congrats to Mario for sneaking into that 16th place there, and just big congratulations and all. But that is going to be it. That is going to be our breakdown again. Make sure to check out Eggman events. I've been working really hard on it, and I hope you guys enjoy all the work that went into it and all the cataloging and everything else. I hope it's useful. But again, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.